This database lesson is about how to use wildcard searches in the where clause of a select statement. The objective is for us to learn what a wildcard search is and how to implement one. In previous videos, we learned how to use the where clause to add filtering criteria to find specific records or sets of records in our underlying data. However, sometimes we do not want to do an actual specific search. We want to do what is known as a fuzzy search, where we don't actually know the full value that we wish to use in our comparison. We can use wildcard searches and a new keyword called the like keyword to perform these types of searches where we don't enter the full value that we're searching for. There are two characters that we use for wildcard searches in the SQL programming language. The first is the percentage sign, and the second one is the underscore character. Now what both of these characters represent is when we want to perform a search, but we want to replace the values in an exact string with either one or more indeterminate characters, then that's when the wildcard characters come into play. The difference between the two is that the percentage sign, when used as a wildcard character, it replaces any number of characters or digits in a string. The underscore, however, is just saying this is a single digit or character and this is the position that it takes up in the string. So let's do a quick example here using data from the album table. What you're seeing on screen here is all of the records that exist in the album table, and we can see the titles, which is what we're going to be working with. So if I wanted to do a search for a specific title, I would use a standard where clause. I would use the column and say that it is equal to, and let's just pick, say, Ride the Lightning by Metallica. So if I run this, I can find this exact record, and that's the only record that gets added to my result set. However, this is different from me saying I want to find all of the albums that have a title that start with the letter R. Now, I don't know what all those titles are, so I can't, put them in. I guess technically I could put them in one by one using AND operators, but that would be very time consuming, and I don't always necessarily know exactly what all the titles are. It would be very time consuming to do. So if I did want to perform a search for all albums that have a title beginning with the letter R, I could use the wildcard character to essentially replace any values that might come after the R. So I could just put in something like this, R percentage sign. Now if I run this query, you'll notice I get no records returned. The reason for that is that we are using the incorrect operator. The equals operator means the value that we're comparing must exactly match the value in the column in order to be added to our result set. So what we use instead is a different new operator, which is known as the like operator. Now this is really only used when you're doing wildcard searches, and if you just think of the word like, it's just indicating it's not exact, it's just something similar to. So now that we've changed our operator, let's run our query again, and you can see, I can actually see 15 records, and these are all the records in the album table that begin with the letter R. Now, because we can use the percentage sign to replace any number of characters, you must put it in the position that pertains to where you want, the type of search that you want to do. For example, if I put a second percentage sign before the R, what that would be saying would be, give me all of the albums that have anything up to the R and anything after the R. And as long as it was a capital R, just because it's case sensitive, it would give us everything that's in here. Now you can use this not just with a single character. I could use this as many as I wanted. Let's just say if I went in and I said, give me all of the albums that start with the word greatest. If I run this now, you can see I have 4 records. Greatest hits 2 and 1, greatest hits with no Roman numeral after it, and greatest kiss. So this is just showing you that we can put this in here. Now, if I wanted to, say, use the second wildcard character, which is the underscore, I might be able to do something like this. I just put in 4 underscores, and what that means is give me something that starts with the word greatest, has a space, and then any 4 characters. Please note I am still using the like keyword since this is an inexact search. When I run this, this will give me greatest kiss and greatest hits. Now the difference here, if you noticed, was that because there are characters after the S, let me just put this back for a second to my original wildcard. Because there are things after the S in the word hits or kiss, such as the space and the 2 I's or 1 I here, those get filtered out because the underscores mean we must have exactly that number of characters. It doesn't matter what those characters are, but it must be that number exactly. Another point to note about using the percentage sign as your wildcard character is that it replaces any number of characters, and that number can include 0. So just as an example, if I said give me anything that replaces anything that starts with greatest hits and a percentage sign, what that gives me is both the things that have space and a Roman numeral after it, and it also gives me greatest hits with nothing after it. So please hit the pause button now, and here's your task. Write a select statement to retrieve the name of any persons from the customer table whose first name meets these 2 criteria. Begins with the letter M, capital, and has a last name containing the letter S. That can be used with any casing. Welcome back from the pause. So the task I gave you was to find any customers with a first name beginning with the capital M and having an S using any casing somewhere in the word. So let's try that first. We need to indicate the field that we want to search for our first criterion, and we cannot use the equal sign because that is looking for an exact match, which is not what we're looking for here. It's a wildcard search, so we must use the like operator. And the value we're searching for is anything that begins with an M. Now, because we're saying beginning with, I want to actually put my percentage sign wildcard character after the capital M. This is saying starts with a capital M and has any number of characters after it. So let's just run this to see what we get. We see we have 7 records. All of the first names begin with M, and we're good. Now, the second part of this was for me to add in anything where the last name contains an S. And this one's a little bit trickier, so let's just look at this. We use our AND operator to indicate we're putting in a second criterion. We put in the last name field. Again, we use the like operator. And I'm going to put in, let's do the lowercase s first. So if I do lowercase s and percentage sign afterwards, what this is saying is anything that has an S in it and starts with an S and has this. If I run this, you can see I get no records returned. That is because we don't want an S, lowercase s starting the string. We want to put it somewhere in the middle of the string, anywhere in the string. So if I run this now, this is saying any number of characters up to a lowercase s and then any number of characters afterwards. So this actually returns these 3 characters which had something, lowercase s, and then something else. Remember that it can be 0 characters. It doesn't have to have something after it. But this solution doesn't quite meet our final requirement, which was to check for both the lowercase and uppercase s. So let's try this. Let's add in another AND operator to indicate a third criterion. Of course, this is also searching the last name field. In a condition, you always need to have the 2 parts. So the column, the operator, and the value to compare. So we need to put this in. You can't just string them together without putting the column name in as well. Again, we're using our like keyword, and in this case, let's say our capital S. Now, when I run this, I get 0 records returned. Just really quickly, let's go back to this just to see what may have happened. Here's my M's. I have some records with lowercase s and I have some records with uppercase s. However, The problem here is not with the way that we're doing our wildcards or our operators, our like operators. It is actually in the logic that we've built using two ands. So we want all records to meet this criteria, but we want some records to meet this one and possibly some to meet this one. So instead of saying this first criteria with the first name for the M, we want that and. This is where our order of operations comes in. I'm going to put parentheses around these two, and I'm actually going to indent this just to make this a little more clear. Now, let's put it on a separate line. I'm saying this must be true and these must be true. Now, if you're following the logic here, this is actually also incorrect, because if I'm saying and here, that doesn't always give me what I want. The correct way to do this would be to have the OR keyword in here, the OR operator, which essentially says give me all records with a first name starting with capital M and one of these two options, anything that meets one of them. So if a record meets the lowercase criteria with the wildcards, or if the last name meets the uppercase S criteria with the wildcards. So this was just an example of how we can use the wildcard characters, the percentage sign and the underscore, in order to do inexact searches, otherwise known as fuzzy searches. It's a very useful tool, especially when the data that you have, if you're doing broad searches or non-specific searches. It's a very powerful tool.